Hello and welcome. My name is Dr. Jeremie, and today we're going to be using the sourcing tool to break down and understand a text. We will be using content from Unit 4, Day 6, and concentrating on Indian resistance to colonial rule. Before we begin, let's actually look at the sourcing tool itself and try to break down what our steps are. You may have used this tool before, or this might be the first time that you are using it. The goal by the end of this video is that you can use this tool on any source that you come across. The sourcing tool itself is really meant to help you to read and focus on the time, place, and creator of a document. And we do this in order to make our inferences about its historical meaning. Step one, we look at the title, the source information, and the format of the document. In step two, we try to make connections to prior knowledge that we may have and information from the document's context if it's there. Step three, we really read the document closely. And while reading, we continue to make inferences. We continue to ask questions and make connections. This is where we'll be annotating the text to really try to make those. We will look at the central idea or ideas of the document and try to summarize it in our own words. And then we're also going to try to connect those central ideas to what we know about the text. So looking at the title again, the source information, and making additional connections to our prior knowledge. And then we're going to bring it all together. In step four, we reread the document, we look at our annotations and our notes, and then we try to figure out what is the author's perspective, purpose, and potential bias. So for this, we are going to look at a text called India is Reborn by Jawaharlal Nehru, and we're going to use the sourcing tool to analyze the text. We'll also have model responses from me in the blue. So let's begin. Right, keep these steps in mind. You may wish to write this down, or if you have your own tool, follow me step by step. If we look at the first couple of steps, we're trying to really figure out the information in front of us. So let's first look at step one, where we're trying to record the title, source information, and format. And my model response is already in blue for you, but I want you to know how I got there. So the first thing I'm looking for is the title. So the title is Before India is Reborn. I would underline it, I would highlight it, and I would just make sure I have that already there. And I also need to know any kind of source information about the author as well. So I know the title, I know who it's written by. What else should I know? I probably should know the time. I should know where the author is. So in the text, I can see that this is an Indian nationalist. He's going to become the first prime minister. And I kind of have some time here too. He's going to really help the country around 1947. At least I have some time here. But then I also see that there's another time that this essay itself was written in 1936 while India was still under British rule. So this is going to really help me with my context and to really figure out what is happening here. And I find out here too that this is an essay. So the context here has helped me a lot. I know about the author. I know about why the author is kind of writing this, and I also know what kind of format I should be looking for. And in step two, this is now more about you making connections to what you already know about the topic. So this is going to definitely connect us to decolonization. And why are we going through a decolonization process? Because of imperialism. Particularly if we're looking at India, we're thinking about British rule in India. So I really remember that this is connecting to these national movements that are rising in the 20th century. And I also, this is a great place to put questions. And I also wonder if one of the reasons that this is written is to encourage Indian peoples to support the drive towards independence. I'd put all of that there in step two. Write everything in there, your questions, anything you remember, your connections, so that it'll help you understand the text more. The next step is to now look at the text itself. So we're going to look at step three. You may wish to pause this just so you can look at it yourself and make some annotations on your own. And I'll walk you through my annotations and how I would look at this document. So when I look at this document, there are a couple of things. So step three, if we look here, is asking us to do a couple of things. And I've read the document and I'm trying to figure out what is the central idea. Well, to me, I'm going to say everything here highlighted in this blue box seems to be the sum of the central idea here. We're talking about not only India's past, but also its present. And I really see in the beginning of this essay that he says that there's so many cultural traditions that make India great, and that there's tons of wisdom in India. And even here, and this sentence really kind of stuck to me, that even despite being colonized, there, like, India has never wholly forgotten its previous wisdom, its past, its Upanishads. It has not really forgotten its place in history. And that to me is something to really write down. I feel like in this passage and excerpt, that's one of the central ideas here, that despite the hardships that they're going through right now, they have a past to be proud of. And he goes on, and I'm noticing this if I'm trying to connect the central idea to other things. He's going on to list that some of the problems are really coming from this new existence they're living in. So now I'm trying to make the connections, and this seems to be also another central idea, right? That yes, we have a great, glorious past, but we do have problems now. And some of the problems come from being governed by strangers from afar, that there is lots of poverty. It's hard to resist disease and epidemics. So their medical and living conditions are not up to par. Illiteracy is rampant. So I'm seeing that in this, we have Nehru starting off really trying to bolster up Indian pride in their countries, but also saying we have to face the reality that we have poor working and living conditions, and we also have a lack of education. So when I write that up, this is what I would actually say using my annotations that we had before. I would write up that he starts his speech really using that. He's praising them for keeping their traditions. And then he's also saying, but let's face the reality, let's face these problems. So the next thing that I would definitely look at is going to be, well, now that I've looked at this, how do I connect to the central ideas? Right? So once again, we are looking at a couple of things for this part, because this is our next paragraph, right? So in our next paragraph, we're going to do the same thing we did before. So if you want to pause it and do it on your own, and then you could follow along with me again. So now we've gotten really good at this. So let us look at how we can summarize. Some of the main central ideas here seems to be that Nehru is concerned about the well-being of the Indian people. He really wants to help the Indian people. He wants unemployment relief. He wants to help them with shelter. He's really concentrating on education, sanitation, and medical relief. So he's building on things he mentioned in the previous paragraph that were wrong and that need to be helped, right? And if I'm going to also connect it to things I've learned before, in this same paragraph, Nehru makes the connection that there are other countries that have had hardships in their past as well, but they're advancing. So he uses Russia and Turkey as examples. And we know from studying history, especially the 20th century, that Russia and Turkey really modernized and industrialized. And he's making that connection right there that that might be a way to help all the troubles that we're seeing in our central ideas. So if I was going to put this together, and let's look at our annotations once more, Nehru really does go on to share his belief that we need improvements in education, sanitation, in medicine. We need to help the population and unemployment. All of this has to happen in order to progress and make India better. And he does, and I want to put this down, and you may have put something like this down too in your annotations. I really do wonder if he is making that connection so clear between Russia and Turkey because he wants to encourage industrialization and modernization in India as well. So I would definitely write that down in step 3 because it's going to help you really try to make the connection and understand what is being said here. The next thing I would do now is look at all my annotations from the 2 paragraphs, and I would try to really make sense of it. So reread the text, but also look at your annotations and what you've written down from steps 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to look at the perspective, purpose, and bias. It's very clear to us, based on what we have done already, that his perspective is that the Indian people are suffering under the rule of the British. If we go back to step 2, we actually see that too. And we actually see that in step 3, the first paragraph. His perspective then is that India has the inner strength. Remember in that first paragraph that there's so much good. We have such a great history. And then he goes on to share that other countries have done a lot to improve their countries as well. Remember that tie into Russia and Turkey. So we're seeing how we're using the other steps to really understand the perspective of the document. And then we want to know the purpose. So why did he write this text? What is this text going to do? So I think that his purpose in writing this text is to really provide a focus for the nationalist movement in India. Because we remember from step 1, this essay was written before they got independence. So this seems to be encouraging the people to fight for something that they deserve. They deserve better. And it's to show that life in India can improve because it has improved in other places as well. And if I have to think about the potential bias of this document, Nehru really wrote this to encourage more people to join this fight. Because once again, if we remember steps 1, 2, and 3, this was written before they had independence, and he's trying to get them to want to fight for that independence. And I know too from my prior knowledge that Nehru was a Hindu. And by using the Upanishads, which is a Hindu text in his speech, he's also trying to bring that in and focusing on the Hindu population and get their support for the movement too. So I hope this was helpful for you, that you saw how we could use the sourcing tool to really further our understanding of a text. And I hope that you can use this in the future. Have a great one. I'll see you next video.